Hello and welcome to this week's episode of Unbound. I'm Nicola Humber, author of Unbound and founder of the Unbound Press. And today I am so delighted to be joined by Marelda Rodrigues. Welcome, Marelda.
Hi, how are you, Nicola? It's good to see you again.
It is. We've been friends and we've been connected for a few years now, but then we've been out of touch, and it was lovely to reconnect with you, Marelda, and I really wanted to get you on to have this conversation. Marelda is a grief massage therapist and a wellness coach, and the grief massage is something that you've recently moved into. It's different to what you're doing when I first connected with you, although it feels completely perfect for you. But I know a lot of people will probably be watching this going, grief massage, what is that? And how did you come to do it? So we are going to dive into that. We are absolutely going to dive into that. But I always start these conversations, excuse me, getting too excited, with the same question, because obviously the theme here in everything I do is unbound and being your freest self. And I wonder if there's a time in your life when you felt particularly bound and how you moved beyond that.
Yes, I've come from a lot of being bound, culturally speaking. So, heritage-wise, being Indian, Indian culture is very much about, here's your structure, here's your education, and this is what you do after your education. This is how you get a job. This is how you move up the ladder. And I don't think I have followed much of that on many levels. Professionally, I did the whole, what was expected of me, and then I veered off and became a massage therapist, and that kind of, was already off track. And then I personally, I haven't been married. And I think, at just going through a whole career thing and having that as a priority, I think has also been off track. So I think I've colored outside the lines on many, many levels.
Which we love.
Yeah. And you know what? I've sort of followed my nose, as they say. And I think my particular struggle was, oh my God, I'm not, going to make dad happy or mom happy or whatever, the relatives happy or whatever. But at the same time, I think I've been such an independent person all my life that I actually, while I've carried the guilt, I've still followed my nose. I think my parents realized that it was getting me to places that I was either making money or enjoying. And so they couldn't quite argue. But they weren't exactly my biggest spokespeople with massage. With my corporate job, they were. So, so that was the way I colored outside the lines. And then, I've continued on and always been a pioneer, and my family has no idea what a health coach is. So once again, coloring outside the lines. Yeah.
Absolutely. And we love that. As I said, we love coloring outside the lines and going off track in any way that you can. It's perfect. And, I know from our conversations and being connected with you, Marelda, you follow your intuition and you allow yourself to be guided. And you have been kind of doing that, certainly ever since I've known you. And I know before that. And when we first connected, obviously we're doing the massage and health coaching and very involved in functional medicine, like so knowledgeable. How did you come to focus on grief? Because this is recently, quite a recent development. And I was so fascinated when I saw your post about it. I was like, I need to talk to Marelda about this new direction. So tell us about how this has happened.
Yeah. So starting this year, so we're at the beginning of June, and starting from the very first week in January until now, I have written about 3 condolence messages a week, 2 to 3 a week. And, as I'm looking on my newsfeed on Facebook, I'm watching each person announce their event, whether it's a death or an accident or a loss of some sort. And me saying, I'm so sorry to hear that. I'm sorry for your loss. My deepest condolences. And so I just started thinking, I wonder what I'm supposed to learn from this. Is like unusual, so unusual. Like, what am I supposed to learn? And my heart goes out to these people. How can I help them? And my current coach, her mom, dad, and best friend all passed away in a span of 18 months. This was a couple of years ago. And we were having this conversation, and we were talking about how what would make me happy in my business. And we were just talking about massage and, where to go with it. And she mentioned how when she was going through that, she would get 3 massages a week. And her husband didn't want to leave her in the house because she just was so in this pain that she didn't know if she was coming or going, right? So in that space, you don't know whether you're putting your keys in the fridge, leaving the stove on, all that kind of stuff, right? So she was talking to me about her struggles and how she would get a massage. And it was a little crazy, but I felt like I had an out-of-body experience, and another voice took over and said, yes, that's grief massage. And the real me was sitting there going, okay, what's that? And so anyway, I convinced her that it was real. But in my mind, I knew, because from being in massage school, we are taught how to soothe somebody in a space of loss or grief, right? So we're taught about that. It's just not a category like a pregnancy massage. So I looked it up quick because I was like, wow, I'm telling her things. I should probably look it up. But it turned out that it was a thing. I just really didn't know about a category, but I also looked at how many people are doing this, and there's not a whole lot, because we are just taught to kind of go into that space if someone shows up, but it's not really an offering. And I thought this is very interesting. And I looked at what people were doing for grief massage, and the general approach is to soothe the person physically, so help them, de-stress. But it also allows them to feel their pain, because people hold pain in different spots of their body. And so it allows you to kind of work through that with them, with their emotion. And I thought, I have so much background in so many different areas, and I'm just going to create a signature service. So I took what I saw and I expanded it hugely. So I've incorporated not only just the techniques of what people do when we're trying to soothe somebody, but also using other senses. So aromatherapy, right? So they can soothe through the calming sense, helping them visualize a certain way, a guided visualization, a little bit of touch therapy. So it's energy, where is it flowing in the body? A little bit of neuro-linguistic programming, so I can help them create new memories or reconnect to new anchors, if you will. And also using functional medicine, because functional medicine looks at the root cause of any issues with the body. So where are some of these problems going to be stemming from? And how can I, one, get it done with massage, and then suggest coaching as a follow-up to this service? And I also wanted to, really expand grief, not just to an event of death, but also to what I call profound loss. And profound loss is different for different people. But there's always going to be an initiating event. So it could be a job loss, a pet loss, a miscarriage, a act of God, like a house burned down, tornadoes. It could be acts of violence. It could be like in the US, we have all these public shootings. It could
Yeah.
be people who've been around that. So it could be various stages of loss. It could be, people that know people who've committed suicide. It could be anybody that has experienced a initiating event of profound loss.
Yeah, absolutely. Oh my goodness. So powerful. And I love hearing you speak about it, Marelda. And I don't know if you know this about me, but back when after I'd done my hypnotherapy training and I was doing training in counseling, and I actually did a placement with a bereavement counseling service in the UK. So it was talking therapy with people who'd experienced some kind of bereavement. And I loved doing that. It was actually a lot of it is surprisingly uplifting.
It is.
We're experiencing grief and we're, processing different losses, but it could be very uplifting. But I always felt this sense that, obviously, as a therapist, as a counselor, I wasn't allowed to touch. There was no touch. It was speaking therapy. But, it really feels like what people need at those times is touch. That soothing, healing touch, which is so powerful. So I love how you're able to offer that in this deeply supportive kind of container with everything. All of the skills and expertise that you bring to the table. So powerful.
Yeah, I'd agree. I mean, we are, as I say, we're just big grown babies because how you soothe a baby is really how you soothe an adult. I mean, if a baby's crying, you don't just let it scream on the other end of the room. You pick it up, you might soothe it, you might hold its hand, you might rub its feet. So I feel that, we are just larger babies and we need the same thing. And there's so much research on touch therapy and how touch just immediately calms the nervous system. So yeah, and I should say positive touch. Positive touch really calms the nervous system. And that's what I really, I'm expanding on that concept here. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. And what I also love as well is, how this feels like a perfect fit for you. Like it blends together all of your experience. So what you're allowing yourself to do, and I know a lot of the women watching will identify with this because lots of us, we have all of this different range of experience and skills and expertise that we've acquired over time. And sometimes it can feel, and I know you've been on this journey as many of us have, it's like, well, what do I actually do with all of this? What am I meant to be doing here in the world?
Right.
It's not just with the kind of qualifications that we've got, but, the life experiences that we've had. And what I love is that you've really kind of paid attention to what's been happening in your life, what you're seeing, and you've been asking the question, okay, well, what am I meant to do with this? What am I meant to learn here? What am I meant to bring in relation to this? What's it been like for you to kind of be on that journey and to recognize, oh, okay, this is what I need to and want to move into?
So since the conversation with my coach, so when she suggested that I do grief massage, I immediately said, no, that's not for me. I have no idea what that is. And I'm not going to do it. I was like, I don't mind doing it in the context of other massages, but I mean, why would I hang a shingle out saying grief massage? And, so she is extremely, because of her situation, is extremely tuned into what resources she did and did not have. And so she really spoke to that. And I thought, okay, I could be probably the best resource someone has. So I'm just going to make myself the resource kind of thing, right? So I went from that perspective and I said, you know what? I'm just going to wear it for a weekend and see how it feels, and I'll let you know. So I'm going to test drive this. just for the weekend.
I love that.
I'll let you know next week how the test drive went. And so this is what my test drive was. So the very next day, I went on to a domain search. Yeah. So I was like, okay, if I find the domain easily, so I actually actively asked for guidance.
Mm-hmm.
All right. And I said, if I'm on the right track, then I'm going to test 3 things and they're going to work.
Mm-hmm.
And if they don't work, that means I'm not supposed to do this. So the first was a domain search, because it had to be a whatever it is .com, not a .biz, not a .co, not anything .com.
Mm-hmm.
And you know how hard those are to find.
Yeah, absolutely.
Right? I found 5.
Wow.
So I was like, okay, test number 1, check.
Complete.
And then I went to my old roommate, and I thought, she's so busy, I'm going to just ask her if she has some time within this weekend to talk to me.
Mm-hmm.
So I actually wrote her an email, and I said, hey, can you tell me when you have some free time? And she goes, oh, I'm available right now. I was like, oh, okay, well, that doesn't happen. So I talked to her, and as I was describing this to her, I started crying. So, and I was so overcome, like I was so overwhelmed with like, oh my God, all these people are going to need my help. And so she said, well, if you're going to cry, that means you're meant to do it. And I thought, okay, so that's test number 2.
Complete.
And then, exactly. And then there was one more, the space, trying to find the space of where I'm going to do this massage. Because right now I work at a spa and I wanted to do it separately in a private space.
Yeah.
And I thought, I'm just never going to find a space. Like, so I reached out to one of my coworkers, and she said, I really don't have any spots right now. And I said, oh, see, that's no space. And then another coworker said, well, I don't mind sharing space with you. I didn't really think about sharing space, but I'm happy to share. I was like, okay, well, maybe. It turned out that her space wasn't right, but the space that the colleague said no, 2 days later, sent me an email saying, we have space.
Wow.
So I said, okay, I'm going to go look, right? So check number 3 happened, and I found my space. And so I went back to my coach. Oh, and in that time, I immersed myself in things that were grief. So I listened to podcasts, I looked up books, I read some of the blogs, and I really, to your point, found a lot of this, the speakers were talking about how it really was uplifting, freeing, sort of giving them a path rather than feeling so stuck in a place or stuck in an emotion. And they spoke a lot about empowerment and moving forward. And so I knew that, knowing me, I am very high energy. And so I wanted something that had a momentum or a movement forward. Even, it's also a play upon words, because muscles love to move. And if I'm a massage therapist, I have to make them move, right? People have to move. And so there was so many things that kind of came around. And so I finally settled on calling my new business Move Beyond Grief.
Gorgeous. So gorgeous. I love that. There's so much for people to learn from what you're sharing. Obviously in relation to grief, and maybe looking at it in a different way and finding a different way to move through it. But also kind of in your personal process, the way you've allowed yourself to look for these signs, to notice these signs, to be guided, to take a new idea for a test drive and kind of say to the universe, okay, if I'm meant to do this, then these are the things. And, it's like the way has opened up for you to do this. It feels very clear. And like I said, you shared a post on Facebook about this new direction. And as soon as I saw it, I was like, yes, 1, this is so very needed. And 2, this is so perfect for Marelda. I just felt so excited for you.
Thank you.
And I love the way you're talking about grief, which is, an area that we don't really tend to talk about. It's normally something that's unspoken or people feel uncomfortable speaking about. And actually, just yesterday, I was watching an interview with Elizabeth Gilbert, who has a new book out, and she lost her partner, died, I think it was last year. And she's talking about the grieving process and seeing it as a creative process. Like, you know, she's seeing this as like a creative challenge. Okay, how can I move through this? And she's been using dance like every single day to help the feelings move through. And this is the thing, you know, muscles want to move, our emotions want to move as well. That's what they're meant to do. So it really feels like with the massage and everything else you offer, you're creating an opportunity for these feelings of grief to move through whoever you're working with.
Yeah, and I mean, there's also a concept, it's used mostly in the concept of emotional eating, but it's a concept of emotional metabolism. And it's how, you know, if you were to take food, you would start the digestion by chewing on it, then you would allow it to digest in your stomach, then you would allow it to move through the intestines and be absorbed, and whatever is not absorbed is eliminated. But there's a movement through, right? And so emotions, they speak, it's called the Institute for the Psychology of Eating, and they liken emotions in the same way because people have a lot of issues with emotional eating. And they talk about, you know, being emotionally digesting and, you know, absorbing what you need to from an emotion, but eliminating the rest. And they also talk about, you know, when you don't do that with an emotion, you experience what's called emotional constipation, which is that sluggish feeling that you have when an emotion is like sort of kept you trapped.
Yeah.
And so it's very, you know, I think what happens is we're so in our head that we don't go into our heart, and really a lot about grief massage and grief wellness coaching is about dropping into your heart without allowing the head to kind of get in the way and sort of like take over the situation and try to, you know, direct traffic. It's really about dropping into your heart, which is not a place a lot of people are familiar being in. Many people are uncomfortable being there. And I think the process of, you know, a lot of people don't like the word surrender because they feel it's less than, but I see surrender as just the journey from dropping from the head to the heart. That's the surrender.
Gorgeous.
So, yeah.
Really gorgeous. So Marelda, you're based in Chicago, and there'll be people watching this from all over the world who maybe can't come and work with you directly in Chicago.
Come over.
Exactly. Go to Chicago and visit Marelda. You know, in terms of actually receiving massage from you. But is there any way that people can work with you or connect with you who are in other parts of the States or other parts of the world?
Absolutely. I already have a global practice for my health coaching. So this is just going to take on the flavor of grief. So people can contact me wherever they are. I am set up to do video calls just like this. They can do a consultation. They can take advantage of, you know, a smaller offering I have, which is like about an hour. They can do, you know, a full-on coaching package if that's what they want to do, where they need the support. The consultation really allows them to get a sense of how I work with clients, how I talk to people, see if there's a chemistry, see if, you know, that's what they want to do. Like, does it match their imagination, or where is it different from their imagination? And are they comfortable with that? And are they willing? The most important thing is, are they ready and willing to do the work? Because it's one thing to have that romantic idea in your head, like, oh, you know, I don't want to be in grief anymore. And then it's a whole different space to be doing the work, to be that vision of 3 months from now and 6 months from now. So people can absolutely work with me online.
Amazing, amazing. Such important work that you are doing, Marelda. It really is. And so if anyone is watching this and it has been experiencing grief in any of the forms that it shows up. And it can be like the end of a relationship, a divorce, or
Yeah.
you know, those are all different types of loss that people might be experiencing.
There's also, there's caretaker loss, because, there's caretaker loss is also things like empty nesters, people whose kids finally leave their home and they don't, I watched one of my friends go through this last year. She was so tied to, servicing her family that when her last kid left to go to college, she grieved. But she didn't know because nobody called it out, right? So but she showed all the symptoms. She sounded like it. She spoke like it. So, but I also want to add a little bit of grief that most people don't consider. What's called ambiguous grief. And ambiguous grief is when you have a situation where that initiating event is pending. So a prolonged illness, or that your house is in foreclosure and it's a process. Yeah. Or that in 6 months your kid is leaving to go to college. So it's sort of like you're neither here nor there. You're right in the middle, hanging in and grasping at straws until there's a sort of next step or a finality. And that's an ambiguous grief. And that takes its toll as well, because it still brings the nervous system to a place of stress. And that stress brings the immune system down.
Yeah.
So, it's not just a event and a next step. Sometimes it's that in between.
Yeah. Oh yeah. That can be a really challenging place to be. And I'm really glad you said that, because, people don't have to wait until the actual event, whatever it is has happened. If you're experiencing these feelings now, then please do reach out and get support with that. 'Cause it can be immensely powerful to allow yourself to be supported
ahead of time. Yeah,
exactly. Yeah, you can kind of clear the way so that whatever it is actually happens, you feel much more resourceful there. So, oh my goodness, like I said, such amazing work that you're doing, and I can't wait to see how this evolves, Marelda. For
me too.
All the people that you're making this wonderful impact on. So what is the best way for people to connect with you? Is it a website or
So my website is currently under construction with the transition. And so the best way really to reach me is to my Facebook page, which is called Move Beyond Grief. And that's really, I created that because while the website is being worked on, I'm still updating my other social media outlets. And so the best way right now that is actually established, where I'm actually putting in posts and things, is going to be my Facebook page, which is Move Beyond Grief. If people don't have a Facebook account or they're just not into Facebook, the other opportunity is to contact me through LinkedIn. It's just that my LinkedIn is in the middle, it's in transition, but you can at least send me a message. And the other thing I wanted to add too is I have now started, for those people who are in Chicago, is I've started gift certificates, because sometimes people don't know how to help somebody who's in grief, and they're like, I wish I knew how to help this person. Or being a former HR manager, the way I was thinking about it is, if there's someone in a workplace who's experiencing that, and coworkers are like, we don't know how to help her, she's so sad, or he's so sad, or he lost his, or she lost his, she lost her, whatever, then you can gift the person a grief massage in the Chicago area. And hopefully, I'll be able to create a situation where, I teach other massage therapists how to do this and be able to spread it a little more.
Yeah, absolutely. I was just thinking if there are any other massage therapists watching this who are thinking, oh, this sounds interesting.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. Because it feels like, it needs to be out there more widely. So thank you so much, Marelda. We'll put a link to your Facebook page. And the other thing I want to say is I love how, although you are in this process of transition, you are completely owning and sharing this new kind of evolution of your work. You know, you haven't waited to get the website in place. It's so easy to go, well, I'll wait until,
yeah.
and we never end up doing it, or it takes months or years. So I love that you're kind of diving in and doing it, because like I said, it feels like it's so much needed. So thank you.
Yeah, and thank you so much for allowing me to share this with your audience. And just I never know. I love doing this because I never know who I'm going to talk to. It's going to be great.
Exactly, and we never know what's going to come through in these conversations. It's like quite magical.
Yeah, and in all the years with massage, I have always had this attitude, like I'll talk to anyone because I never know what's going to come out of it, and it has served me really well in getting my message out, bringing me people, so making connections. So it's always a great thing. And thank you so much.
Connection. Oh, you're so welcome. You're so welcome. It's always a pleasure. And, I was delighted to have the opportunity to have this conversation with you. So thank you so much, Marelda, for joining me and for the amazing work you're doing in the world. Really appreciate it.
Thank you.
Oh, you're welcome. And we'll see you again soon for another episode of Unbound. Bye.
Bye.